Okay, so let's talk about what seems to be the main topic on social media today, and there is the commencement speech of one Harrison Butker. And for those who don't know, let me just make this bigger. For those who don't know, he is the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs who gave a commencement address to Benedictine University, is it? So, yeah, at Benedictine, which is a conservative Catholic institution. So you would think that this would be something that, that it would be safe for him to air his odious views, because you would think that the people there would be receptive to it. And from what I've read, most of them were. That most people gave him a standing ovation. Unfortunately, they were so excited that they got a member of the Super Bowl champs that let's put this on our YouTube page. Unfortunately, that was a mistake, because now we all know his views and we can all mock them together. And like I said, I kind of feel bad for the dude, because he thought he was doing this someplace safe, and now the whole world knows his views and are going to lash out. But not to make what's going to be a long video longer, because I'm going to read the entire speech, and as we all know, commencement speeches last way too long. But here we go. Ladies and gentlemen of the class of 2024, I would like to start off by congratulating all of you for successfully making it to this achievement today. I'm sure your high school graduation was not what you had imagined, and most likely neither was your first couple of years of college. By making it to this moment through all the adversity thrown your way from COVID, I hope you learned the important lessons that suffering in this life is only temporary. As a group, you witnessed firsthand how bad leaders who don't stay in their lane can have a negative impact on society. I can't wait for enlightenment as to what he's talking about. It is through this lens that I want to take stock of how we got to where we are and where we want to go. As citizens, and yes, as Catholics, I think I mentioned that this is a conservative Catholic university. One last thing before I begin. I want to be sure to thank President Minnis and the board for their invitation to speak. When President Minnis first reached out a couple of months ago, I had originally said no. And considering the backlash he's receiving now, he probably should have stuck with that answer. You see, last year I gave the commencement address at my alma mater, Georgia Tech, and I felt that one graduation speech was more than enough, especially for someone who isn't a professional speaker. Obviously, he knows his audience, because we're not hearing about this speech from Georgia Tech. Or maybe we're hearing about it because he actually indirectly brought up Taylor Swift, and that's always going to be a problem. But of course, President Minnis used his gift of persuasion and spoke to the many challenges you all faced through the COVID fiasco, and how you missed out on so many milestones the rest of us older people have taken for granted. The rest of us older people. I can't wait to find out how old this dude is. Because older is relative here. I'm pretty sure I'm old enough to be his mother. Not positive, but wouldn't be surprised. All right. And I would love to know, what was the fiasco? the way it was handled? Did he not think that COVID existed? But I'm sure we're going to get into that. While COVID might have played a large role through your formative years, it is not unique. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues, things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values and media. All stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Okay, so far, clear as mud. All right. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. Okay, it wasn't a pro-abortion rally. Those don't exist. Pro-choice, pro-abortion rights, but it's not pro-abortion. Nobody who deals with abortion, whether they have to have it or whether they perform it, like doing that. They just know that it's a part of life. Just like no other doctor goes to work and says, oh goody, I get to perform an appendectomy. That is not the way this works. And as for him making the sign of the cross, yes, he is a Catholic, and personally, he's pro-life. But you know what? He also understands that not everybody's a Catholic. Not everybody thinks like him. So why the hell would he force his views down anybody's throat? He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. He is not alone. No, he isn't alone. There's Stephen Colbert. I think he's still Catholic. Yeah, there's plenty. Those are the only two that come to mind that I know for a fact are Catholic and famous. But, yeah, you can be pro-choice. There isn't one way to be a Catholic. I mean, obviously, he's a conservative Catholic, and he's speaking to a conservative Catholic institution. So, in all their minds, that probably does go hand in hand. But that doesn't mean that that's a fact. So, I mean, I've mentioned this before. The Bible has a recipe for an abortion. Tell me again how this is just biblical. No, it's not just biblical. So, anyway, moving on. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. Everybody is Catholic? Okay. Yeah, I guess you preferred the atheist dude, I might add, because Trump is most definitely an atheist. And I don't know why atheists would want to claim him, because he's an idiot. But he wanted you to inject bleach. I'm sure he prefers that. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. Okay, well, at least he understands that the Bible isn't the end-all be-all. That's good. These are the sort of things we are told in polite society not to bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. Are you absolutely kidding me? Understanding that not everybody thinks like you is the Church of Nice and it's not a winning proposition? Are you kidding me? Are you seriously saying that Catholics should shove their... Actually, yeah, that is what he's saying. They should shove their religion down your throats and force people to believe it. No, that's what the separation of church and state is for, sweetheart. But it wouldn't surprise me if he thought that was a fabrication, too. We must always speak and act in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice. Who the hell mistakes charity for cowardice? What? I'm not even sure. I want to know what he's going on about. So far, it's been so vague that maybe it's just a dog whistle and everybody in the audience knows what he's saying, but I'm not completely sure. It is safe to say that over the past few years, I've gained quite the reputation for speaking my mind. Oh, really? This is the first I've ever heard of you. I never envisioned myself nor wanted to have this sort of a platform, but God has given it to me, so I have no other choice but to embrace it and preach more hard truths about accepting your lane and staying in it. Dude, you are a kicker for a football team. What lane do you think you belong in? I can see why Flavor Flav mentioned staying in your lane. I didn't understand that before, but now that makes sense. Because he said it in his speech that you should accept your lane. Well, how is this accepting your lane? Your lane is to kick footballs, not tell Catholics what they should, or anybody for that matter, what they must think. Okay, well, that mystery is solved. As members of the church founded by Jesus Christ, it is our duty and ultimately privilege to be authentically and unapologetically Catholic. Okay, nobody's stopping you from being a Catholic. Don't be mistaken, even within the church, people in polite Catholic circles will try to persuade you to remain silent. Are you talking about the kitty diddling priests? What are you talking about? There was even an award-winning film called Silence, made by a fellow Catholic, where one of the main characters, a Jesuit priest, abandons the church and was an apostate when he died to sin, grasping a crucifix, quiet and unknown to anyone but God. I am not familiar with that documentary, so I will say nothing. As a friend of Benedictine College, His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron said in his review of the film, it was exactly what the cultural elite want to see in Christianity. Private, hidden away, and harmless. Are you kidding me? Atheists cannot get away from Christianity. Non-Christians can't get away from Christianity. Where is he getting this idea that it's private, hidden away, and harmless? Jesus Christ. Our Catholic faith has always been countercultural. Well, at one time it was, but not now. Our Lord, along with countless followers, were all put to death for their adherence to his teachings. Well, can't argue that one. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's why Patrick Mahomes doesn't speak to him. He's racist as well. Imagine that, a bigot who's bigoted in every way possible. Shocking. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the... Oh, I read that already, sorry. We fear speaking the truth because now, unfortunately, truth is in the minority. Congress just passed a bill where stating something as basic as a biblical teaching of who killed Jesus could land you in jail. I'll take things that didn't happen for 1,000, Alex. What is he talking about? What bill? I would love to know what bill he just really, really managed to mangle to the point where it's saying that. Because I'm not familiar with any bill that comes close. So I would love to know what bill he thinks he's talking about. Or somebody told him something, and this has just become a huge game of telephone where someone told him something and he warped it into something else. I have no idea what he's talking about. But make no mistake, before we even attempt to fix any of the issues plaguing society, we must first get our own house in order. And it starts with our leaders. The bishops and priests appointed by God as our spiritual fathers must be rightly ordered. There is not enough time today for me to list all the stories of priests and bishops misleading their flocks, but none of us can blame ignorance anymore and just blindly proclaim that that's what Father said. Because sadly, many priests we are looking to for leadership are the same ones who prioritize their hobbies, or even photos with their dogs, and matching outfits for the parish directory. It's easy for us laymen and women to think that in order for us to be holy, that we must be active in our parish and try to fix it. Yes, we absolutely should be involved in supporting our parishes, but we cannot be the source of our parish priests to lean on to help with their problems. Just as we look at the relationship between a father and his son, so too should we look at the relationship between a priest and his people. It would not be appropriate for me to always be looking to my son for help when it is my job as his father to lead him. Saint Jose Maria Escriva states that priests are ordained to serve and should not yield to temptation to imitate lay people, but to be priests through and through. He had a huge ass problem in the Catholic Church, which literally everybody is talking about, and this is what he goes with: that the priests are acting like human beings, that they have likes and dislikes that don't all surround the church. What? There are Catholic priests that are being shuttled from parish to parish to try to prevent them from being prosecuted for their actions towards children. But this is the problem, not that. Alrighty then. Tragically, so many priests revolve much of their happiness from the adulation they receive from their parishioners. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say he's wrong there. I just, based on what he said before, I question where he's going with this. And in search for this, they let their guard down and become overly familiar. This undue familiarity will prove to be problematic every time because, as my teammate's girlfriend says, familiarity breeds contempt. And for those who didn't catch that, the teammate's girlfriend in question here is Taylor Swift. He couldn't name Travis Kelce, and he couldn't freaking name Taylor Swift. And, of course, there's a reason for that, and we're going to get to that eventually. Saint Jose Maria continues that some want to see the priests as just another man. That is not so they want to find in the priests those virtues proper to every Christian, and indeed every honorable man understanding justice, a life of work, priestly work in this instance, and good manners. It is not prudent as the laity for us to consume ourselves and become an amateur theologian so that we can decipher this or that theological teaching, unless, of course, you are a theology major. We must be intentional with our focus on our state in life and our own vocation. And for most of us, that says married men and women. And yet he's going to vomit out his theology. Okay. Either you just sit down, shut up, and listen to priests like you think should be done, or you vomit your theology. You can't do both. Still, we have so many great resources at our fingertips that it doesn't take long to find traditional and timeless teachings that haven't been ambiguously rewarded for our times. Plus, there are still many good and holy priests, and it's up to us to seek them out. Where Catholicism is dying, Christianity is dying in the U.S. There are parishes that cannot find priests. If you wonder what I'm talking about. There are parishes that cannot find priests. So the laymen might still adhere, but you're not getting the priests. All right. The chaos of the world is unfortunately reflected in the chaos in our parishes, and sadly in our cathedrals. Our cathedrals, too, as we saw during the pandemic, too many bishops were not leaders at all. They were motivated by fear. Fear of being sued, fear of being removed, fear of being disliked, or fear of killing people. They showed by their actions, intentional or unintentional, that the sacraments don't actually matter. That's why churches did online services or drive-through, drive-through rites, because I cannot think of the word right now. Yeah, but they're saying that this shit doesn't matter. What? Because of this, countless people died alone without access to the sacraments. Yeah, countless people died alone because they had COVID. Because people like you thought that it was a joke or something. And as for not being able to have sacraments, if we had the pandemic under control and knew what we were dealing with, then yeah, they could have gotten that. Wow. But it's the bishop's fault. It's not the fact that, the hospitals were trying to prevent a bad pandemic from getting even worse. No, that couldn't be it. And it's a tragedy we must never forget. Yes, the fact that the people died alone wasn't the tragedy. It's that they didn't receive sacraments. That part is the tragedy. Wow, this guy is a real winner. I can see why there have been 2 petitions to get him kicked off the Chiefs. Which I do not condone, but I do find it amusing. As Catholics, we can look to so many examples of heroic shepherds who gave their lives for their people and ultimately the church. We cannot buy into the lie that the things we experienced during COVID were appropriate. What things? Over the centuries, there have been great wars, great famines, and yes, even great diseases, all that came with a level of lethality and danger. But in each of these examples, church leaders leaned into their vocations and ensured that their people received the sacraments. So you're comparing priests not wanting to get sick or get other people sick with priests that lived during the times of the bubonic plague, where everybody was dying left and right. What? Are we seriously doing this? Because obviously receiving sacraments is worth more than, not killing your parishioners. Great saints like Saint Damien of Molokai, who knew the dangers of his ministry, stayed for 11 years as a spiritual leader to the leper colonies of Hawaii. Okay, that's great that he did that, but that was a leper colony. Those people were quarantined. It's not like this was a worldwide pandemic. His heroism is looked at today as something set apart and unique. when ideally it should not be unique at all. For as a father loves his child, so a shepherd should love his spiritual children too. Yes, love them enough not to get them killed. Why is this part not sinking into his brain? I realize he's a kicker, but has he been hit in the head a few times? That goes even more so for our bishops. These men who are present day apostles or bishops once had adored crowds of people kissing their rings and taking in their every word, but now relegate themselves to a position of inconsequential existence. Not going there, don't know. Now when a bishop of a diocese or the bishops' conference as a whole puts out an important document on this matter, nobody even takes a moment to read it, let alone follow it. How is that the bishop's problem? No, today our shepherds are far more concerned with keeping the doors open to the chancery that they are saying that difficult stuff out loud. What? Okay, those were words. Those were English words put together in what seems to be a sentence. I have no idea what that sentence meant. Maybe this is something Catholic-y and I don't understand it. So, not going to worry about it. It seems that the only time you hear from your bishop is when it's time for the annual appeal. Whereas we need our bishops to be vocal about the teachings of the church, setting aside their own personal comfort and embracing their cross. Our bishops are not politicians but shepherds. So instead of fitting in the world by going along to get along, they too need to stay in their lane and lead. And exactly what lane is it that tells you that a football kicker should be telling the church how to run things? I mean, that's just great that, you want to better your church. That doesn't bother me. But how is that your lane exactly? Because you're a Catholic? Because I would be fine with that if that was your reasoning. But to emphasize that they need to stay in their lane. What lane? Are you seriously suggesting that bishops are just bishops and they have no other function in life? That they cannot do more than one thing at a time? Because if that's the case, then stick to kicking the damn football and leave the church to the church. Because you can't decide that bishops are only a one-dimensional thing, but you are somehow not just one-dimensional. You can do more than one thing, so you have more than one lane. You don't get to do that. I say all of this not from a place of anger, as we get the leaders we deserve. Please don't remind me of that. But this does not make me reflect on staying in my lane. Obviously, that is his talking point, staying in his lane, and focusing on my own vocation. But this does not make me reflect on what? And how I can be a better father and husband and live in the world, but not be of it. Okay, now maybe I misread that, but did he just say everybody else should stay in their lane but me? But this does make me reflect on staying in my lane and focus. Then why the hell aren't you? You're telling everybody else to stay in their lane, but you somehow feel that you don't need to for some reason. Because you seem to think that you're bigger than this world. And yet somehow you've decided that your own church is not that and should be criticized. Oh, I think I'm getting a headache. Focusing on my vocation while praying and fasting for these men will do more for the church than me complaining about our leaders. And yet here you are complaining about your leaders instead of fasting and praying for them. Because there seems to be so much confusion coming from our leaders, there needs to be concrete examples for people to look to, and places like Benedictine, a little Kansas college built high on a bluff above the Missouri River, are showing the world how an ordered, Christ-centered existence is the recipe for success. Okay, not every Catholic is of the same denomination as you. There are conservative Catholics, there are liberal Catholics. Get over it. Not everybody thinks like you. All right. You need to look no further than the examples all around this campus, where over the past 20 years enrollment has doubled and construction and revitalization are a constant part of life, and people, the students, the faculty, and staff are thriving. All right. This didn't happen by chance. In a deliberate movement to embrace traditional Catholic values, Benedictine has gone from just another liberal art school with nothing to set it apart to a thriving beacon of light, and a reminder to us all that when you embrace tradition, success, broadly and spiritual will follow. Okay, what? I am certain the reporters at the AP could not have imagined that their attempt to rebuke and embarrass places and people like those here at Benedictine wouldn't be met with anger, but instead that with excitement and pride. Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it. Oh, that's how he got Pride Month shoehorned into there. But the true God-centered pride that is cooperating with the Holy Ghost to glorify Him. I thought pride was a sin. I mean, I don't remember the Bible that well, because I've always been an atheist and I haven't read the whole thing. But pride is a sin. Pride is a sin. Not let's pretzel our brain to allow some pride but not others. Let's see. And how is the AP attacking places like Benedictine? Just, how about giving concrete examples instead of talking out your ass? Because I read the AP. I have never seen anything remotely like that. They do not attack Catholics, and they aren't attacking Benedictine in particular. So I have no idea what the hell he's talking about again. So, again, I have no idea where this is all coming from. Now, the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it, that just screams you have no idea what pride means. It just means that you assholes aren't winning. That we're here, we're queer, get over it, and if you don't like it, fine. You don't have to partake. Nobody's forcing you to be queer. Nobody's forcing you to even be an ally, but we exist. And it's been like that ever since Stonewall, when the police finally broke people's minds and they rose up and rioted because they were sick of being kicked around they just were sick of being kicked around. I can't think of where I was going with that. And they rose up as anybody who is being basically who's being discriminated against and oppressed should. Which, last I checked, is biblical. Or does that only work when it's Jews? Which, you're Catholic, that doesn't work for you then. And no, I'm really trying hard not to bash religions, because I know that, like I said before, not all Catholics think like this. I'm aware of that. So if it sounds like I'm bashing Catholics and Christianity in general, I'm not. I'm not. I'm just bashing how he sees it. Reading that article now shared all over the world, we see that in the complete surrender of self and a turning towards Christ, you will find happiness. What article? What are you on about? Right here in a little town in Kansas, we find many inspiring lay people using their talents. President Menace, Dr. Swarford, and Dr. Zimmer are a few great examples right here on this very campus that will keep the light of Christ burning bright for generations to come. Being locked in with your vocation and staying in your lane is going to be the surest way for you to find true happiness and peace in this life. So you're saying you haven't found true happiness and peace because you're not staying in your freaking lane? Ugh. It is essential that we focus on our own state in life, whether that be as a layperson or priests or religious. Hold on. You just called yourself a layperson and now you're putting religious and layperson. You're putting layperson or priest. Okay, fine, but you're making religion separate. Not only are you not a professional public speaker, you're not a professional thinker. What the hell? Ladies and gentlemen of the class of 2024, you are sitting at the edge of the rest of your lives. That didn't come out the way I think you meant it to. Okay. Each of you has the potential to leave a legacy that transcends yourselves and this era of human existence. In the small ways, by living out your vocation, you will ensure that God's church continues and the world is enlightened by your example. For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. Oh boy, here comes the sexism. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. And how many of you are sitting here now, about to cross the stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you're going to get in your career. Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you'll bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife Isabel would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on the stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I am beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because the girl I met in being class back in middle school, oh my God, would convert to the faith because my wife and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. Okay, a lot to unpack on this paragraph. So, first off, just as an aside, his mother is a successful physicist. So either he resents that, or he just decided that, or the internet, the manosphere portion of the internet rotted his brain to make him think that that's not what a woman should be doing, and that somehow he's now resentful of his mother. I don't know. I'm not going to psychoanalyze the guy, but dude, how can you say that when your mother is a successful physicist? Now, about his wife. So, if it's true that she is perfectly happy and doesn't regret going, the path that she chose. And she got married, she had kids, and is a housewife and mother. That's great. But the popular opinion of a lot of these people is that feminism is the opposite of being a homemaker. It isn't. If a woman wants to, and she's in the position where she can do that, and that's what she wants, great. That is her choice. Nobody should stop her for doing that if that's what she wants to do. But what makes feminism is that they are basically saying you can do that, or you could have a career and never get married, never have kids, and still be perfectly happy. And that is not a diabolical lie. The fact that you think that says you are a little man. And I've seen some Swifties say that he's the smallest man alive. Because why do you feel threatened by women, dude? Just, feminism is such that if you want to be a house husband and you're in a position where that can happen, where that can be made to happen, feminism says go for it. There is nothing that says that a woman's place is in the home and a man has to work his ass off. The other thing I might like to point out is that your wife is privileged enough that she can stay at home and take care of you and the kids and the other kids. Because you make enough that she doesn't have to worry about work. Most people are not in that position. Most people have to have the two adults working. So, yeah. It's great if she wanted to become a Catholic and marry him and have the title of homemaker, and that fulfills her and she's happy with that. That's great. No, that is the one part of this speech that I will defend him on, because if his wife truly believes that, then that's fine. The problem is that you are trying to tell the other women in this commencement that this is what they should strive for, that this is what will totally make them fulfilled and content, and that this career bullshit is just that. It's just there. And that's not true. I'm not married. I don't have kids. That never crossed my mind. I never wanted that. And there are plenty of people who are married with kids who are miserable because society has told them the diabolical lie, which you claim is not a lie. But the diabolical lie is that you have to get married. You have to have kids. That is the only way to human. And it's not. And so those people who choose to stay single and or choose to be childless, because let's face it, child-free, I should say. Because let's face it, not all men want to either get married or have kids. So if there's a couple that are child-free, then who are you to tell them that this isn't true happiness? It is not up to you to decide what makes someone truly happy. Just because this life makes you truly happy, great. You do you. But don't tell other people that there's only one way for them to be happy, because you're not them. They don't force you to live a certain way. Don't force others to live a certain way, because that's what makes us all unique. It makes us unique because not everybody wants the same thing. So, moving on. She's a primary educator to our children. So your kids are homeschooled then. She's the one who ensures I never let football or my business become a distraction from that of a husband and father. That actually is good. She's the one person that knows me best at my core, and it is through our marriage that, Lord willing, we will both attain salvation. This guy is way too hung up on salvation. I know a lot of religious people are, but that's just so weird to me. Don't be concerned about if there is a next life, because we don't even know if there is one. Don't be concerned about that. Just live your best life here, and if there is a truly loving God, the rest will take care of itself. Instead of just hoping for something better in the next life. Well, you squandered away this one. Why would a loving God give you another chance? So live your best life here. And like I said, if there is a God, then he'll be totally cool with your life. And, you'll get the salvation you're looking for. All right. I say all of this to you because I've seen it firsthand how much happier someone can be when they disregard the outside noise and move closer and closer to God's will in their life. Right? Isabella's dream of having a career might not have come true, but if you ask her today if she has any regrets on her decision, she would laugh out loud without hesitation and say, heck no. And maybe that's true, and that's perfectly fine. But what he's doing is treating women like a monolith. That because this is what his wife wants, and this is how he thinks that women should be, that every woman is just gonna start agreeing with that. We are not the freaking Borg. We are not a monolith. There are women who want to be housewives. There are women who want to be housewives and can actually achieve that because their husbands make enough. There are women who want to become career women and have a family. There are women who want to just have their career and possibly be a single mother or a single father. Because men can have multiple ways, multiple paths to happiness as well. But if that's what they want, great. That's not for you to decide that because you wouldn't want to live like that, that other people couldn't possibly want that. Personally, I don't understand why somebody would become a single parent by choice. But that's not my decision. If they want to go through it, if they are capable of doing it, fine, you do it. If that's what makes you happy and the child is better for it, fine. I'm not going to get in your way. That is your decision. I'm not, however, going to say, how could you want to be a single parent and then make a big stink about it? Of course, I also happen to know a woman, a former coworker, who did just that. She went to China, adopted a child, being single, and both she and the daughter are just perfectly happy. And everything is just going well for both of them. Do I still find it strange? Yes. Am I going to criticize them for it? No. Because I wouldn't do something, I mean, if everything were up to me, what I feel comfortable with, nobody would ever kiss. Because I think that that's just so weird. But I know that's a thing that humans do. They kiss their partners. They suck face. Completely weird to me, and actually I'm grossed out by it. But am I going to say, oh, you shouldn't do that? No, because my likes and dislikes are not yours. So, no, I'm not going to do that. As a man who gets a lot of praise and has been given a platform to speak to audiences like this one today, I pray that I will always use my voice for God and not for myself. Strange how whenever people claim that they're speaking for God, it sounds absolutely like something they would say and not necessarily God, because doesn't it say in the Bible that you cannot know the mind of God? I pray that I always use my voice for God and not for myself. Everything I'm saying to you is not from a place of wisdom, but rather a place of experience. Uh-huh. Well, it is a place of experience, but 4chan experience? What? Because I don't doubt that he has a problem with his church and specifically his parish. But the fact that the pedophilia isn't one of them is very concerning. I am hopeful that these words will be seen as those from a man not much older than you, called it, who feels it is imperative that this class, this generation, and this time in our society must stop pretending that the things we see around us are normal. Define normal. Heterodox ideas abound, even within Catholic circles, because not everyone ascribes to the same branch of Catholicism you do. Let's be honest, there's nothing good about playing God with having children. So you're against birth control. Okay, now I have Monty Python's Every Sperm is Sacred in my head. Thank you. Whether that be your ideal number or the perfect time to conceive. No matter how you spin it, there's nothing natural about Catholic birth control. I thought the Catholic birth control is the rhythm method, which is actually natural. Not very effective, but natural. And actually, now that there are apps that are really good at controlling a woman's period, you really don't. I mean, birth control helps still, obviously, but you can time your pregnancy now. So, yeah, you could probably get away with not using birth control if you're Catholic and then still work at planning your pregnancy. Of course, the man would not be able to touch you until you know for a fact you're fertile, but whatever. It is only in the past few years that I've grown encouraged to speak more boldly and directly because, as I mentioned earlier, I have leaned into my vocation as a husband and father and as a man. To the gentleman here today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. Who says that? You know, he keeps claiming that he's speaking from experience, but so far, all I'm hearing is bullshit, considering he claims that a bill was passed in Congress which does something that it doesn't do. I don't believe a word out of his mouth about his experience. I mean, maybe he's experiencing something, but he completely has it all screwed up what it means. My God. Where was I? As men, we set the tone for the culture. Oh, really? And when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in this absence of men in the home is what plays a larger role in the violence we all see around the nation. Uh-huh. What about domestic violence, sweetheart? You know who usually perpetrates that? Men. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the U.S. Okay, and no facts to back that up. Lovely. And a correlation can be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Yeah, because they generally don't have guns. The only people who have guns are those who use it for their jobs. It's a rarity, Switzerland being one. It's a rarity that just about every household has a gun. And they go through training because a lot of those Swiss people went through military training. So, yeah, there's a reason for lower violence rates because there aren't that many guns. And as for absentee fathers, well, if you're not dealing with men who have this strange idea of what constitutes what a man does and what a woman does, because, it's not so much that women are like, okay, I'll do whatever you say. I'm sure there's still plenty of that, but the respect for each other is much higher. Be unapologetic in your masculinity. Oh boy. He like I kind of figured, he's a toxic masculine guy. Because no, I'm not saying all masculinity is toxic, but in this context, it sure as hell is toxic. Fight against the cultural emasculation of men. Because men can't be cavemen anymore. Okay. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy. Do hard things. You mean like, I don't know, men being able to wear skirts because they like them, as opposed to listening to douche nuggets like you who would have a hissy fit if you saw that. Hard things like that. You might have a talent that you don't necessarily enjoy. But if it glorifies God, maybe you should lean into that over something that you might think suits you better. Are you kidding me? A man who freaking kicks footballs for a living is telling people to follow your talents and not necessarily what you like. Are you seriously telling me that you don't like being a kicker? Maybe you should find something else to do. Like go back to school and learn theology. Which, fun fact, a lot of atheists, like I'm trying to think of the head of Atheist Experience. He went to seminary. He wanted to become a priest, and then that made him an atheist. So seriously, what are you saying here? This is just, maybe because I'm an atheist, but this just sounds bonkers. I mean, okay, that's great that you want to glorify God, but really do something you hate because you just happen to do it well? Well, then, what about men who want to be prostitutes? Because they're good at it. How does that not glorify God? You just said, find something you're talented at, not rather than something that suits you. What if that's what they're talented at? This could go so badly in so many ways, but of course this man doesn't know how to think. And yes, I'm being a little snarky, but still, this is just bullshit. People shouldn't do something. I mean, first off, you would have to know the mind of God in order to claim that, I'd rather do this, but I seem to have a talent for this, so I'm going to do this. That assumes you know what God wants you to do. You don't. Why? Because nobody can know the mind of God. I do not remember what Bible passage that is, but I know it's in the Bible. I speak from experience as an introvert who now finds myself as an amateur public speaker. You should have stuck with being an introvert, sweetheart. And an entrepreneur, something I never thought I'd be when I received my industrial engineering degree. you're claiming that because you discovered something later on in life that somehow that means that what? That, oh, this is where I'm talented, so I'm going to do this and leave my first job? Dude, that just means you're changing as a person. That has nothing to do with what God wants. Because again, how do you know what his mind says? Urgh. The road ahead is bright. Things are changing, society is shifting, and people young and old are embracing tradition. Whose tradition? Not only has it been my vocation that has helped me and those closest to me, but not surprising to many of you should be my outspoken embrace of the traditional Latin Mass. I've been very vocal in my love and devotion to the TLM and its necessity for our lives. But what I think gets misunderstood is that people who attend the TLM do so out of pride or preference. I cannot speak to my own experience, but for most people I have come across within these communities, this is not true. Who says that? Again, who is this straw man you're making up? Because I'm hearing a lot of assumptions, which maybe I'm wrong because I do not know who this person knows, but it just considering he claimed a congressional bill passed that does something that does not do. I haven't heard anything that comes even close. I really don't trust his judgment on anything. I do not attend the TLM because I think I'm better than others or for the smells and bells or even for the love of Latin. I attend TLM because I believe just as the God of the Old Testament was pretty particular how he wanted to be worshipped, the same holds true for us today. It is through the TLM that I encountered order and began to pursue it in my own life. You know, if that's what it takes for you to achieve what you need to achieve, fine. I see nothing wrong with that. It's just when you force it on others that it becomes problematic. Aside from the TLM itself, too many of our sacred traditions have been relegated to things of the past. Like what? When in my parish, things such as Ember Days, days when we fast and pray for vocations and for our priests, are still adhered to. The TLM is so essential that I would challenge each of you to pick a place to move where it is readily available. Now, I can't say much about this because I don't know if the Benedictine College does TLM, but I just don't feel comfortable with someone standing up there and telling other people how to do religion. If it works for you, great. If you're saying, oh, you should guys at least try it once and see how you like it, fine. But I encourage you to move where it's readily available. How about we first establish whether people want to do that? That just ick. A lot of people have complaints about the parish or the community, but we should not sacrifice the Mass for community. I prioritize the TLM even if the parish isn't beautiful, the priest isn't great, or the community isn't amazing. Okay, most people wouldn't want to do that, but alright. I still go to the TLM because I believe the holy sacrifice of the Mass is more important than anything else. Fine, again, you do you. I say this knowing full well that when each of you rekindle your knowledge and adherence to many of the Church's greatest traditions, you will see how much more colorful and alive your life can and should be. And again, that might happen, but that's for each individual to find out on their own not for you to tell them how to do religion. Because if everybody if even church elders all figured out that there was one way to do religion, we wouldn't have all these different denominations. And like I said, there isn't even just one way to Catholic. As you move on from this place and enter into the world, know that you will face many challenges. Sadly, I'm sure many of you know of the countless stories of good and active members of this community who, after graduation and moving away from the Benedictine bubble, have ended up moving in with their boyfriend or girlfriend prior to marriage. Some even leave the church and abandon God. It is always heartbreaking to hear these stories, and there's a desire to know what happened and what went wrong. I absolutely hate when people assume that my being an atheist or my being asexual or anything else that they find outside of the norm with me, they assume that something must have happened in my life to do this. What went wrong? Nothing went wrong. Many atheists became atheists because they read the Bible from cover to cover and realized that it just makes no sense. Or they kept going to a church who, hated on them because they're not normal. I mean, there's a lot of great reasons for leaving the church. Or maybe they decide that they don't want to be Catholic, that another church speaks better to them, whether it be from conservative Catholicism to liberal Catholicism to a different religion to different flavor of Christianity, or to no religion at all. Why do you need to know what went wrong? Everybody's on their own journey. Let them go on their journey. Some people just come to the conclusion that one church doesn't speak to them, a different church does. And again, since you can't know the mind of God, how do you know that God didn't tell them that, you know what? Yep, you don't belong here. You belong here instead. That is not something gone wrong. That just means that somebody has grown and changed as a person and decided that this doesn't speak to them anymore. This has nothing to do with something going wrong. I mean, I wonder how many people are listening to this and who might have been fans of yours and are like, yeah, you can fuck right off now. So, it's funny. Like I said, I do feel a bit bad for him, and no, it still goes. But I still feel bad for him because he thought that he was in a safe space, and suddenly the internet is talking about this. What you must remember is that life is about doing the small things well. So setting yourself up for success and surrounding yourself with people who continually push you to be the best version of you. That is actually really good advice. I say this all the time, that iron sharpens iron. It's a great reminder that those closest to us should be making us better. I wholeheartedly agree. We just differ on what that means. You seem to think that requires adherence to your theology, whereas I just think that as long as you're the best version of yourself, I do not really care if you're religious, which religion that happens to be, if you're atheist, if you're Wiccan, I don't care. I really don't. As long as you're a good person, I see nothing wrong with it. I'm not going to hate on Biden because he's Catholic. I'm going to hate on him for some of his policies, but the fact that he's Catholic doesn't even register, doesn't even hit the list. I just honestly do not care. As long as you're a good person, that's all that matters. So, you're a good person, or you're at least trying to learn to become a better person. I'm good with that. If you're dating someone who doesn't even share your faith, dude, didn't you just say your wife had to convert for you? How do you expect that person to help you become a saint? Again, didn't your wife have to convert for you? So you were dating someone who doesn't even share your faith. What the hell, dude? If your friend group is still filled with people who only think about what you're doing next weekend and are not willing to have those difficult conversations, how can they help sharpen you? Why can't they do both? You know, for someone who makes it sound like he's a freaking intellectual, he's really, really dumb. Again, I can't get over this bill that he mentioned that doesn't do anything close to what he's doing, what he claims it does, that I can't even figure out what bill he's talking about. So, yeah, I would not call you Einstein here. As you prepare to enter into the workforce, it is extremely important that you actually think about the places you are moving to. Who is the bishop? What kind of parishes are there? Do they offer the TLM and have priests who embrace their priestly vocation? Cost of living must not be the only arbiter of your choices. Again, true. For a life without God is not a life at all. Wow. And the cost of salvation is worth more than any career. Okay. Well, that's one way to completely shit on atheists. Now, granted, this is a conservative Catholic institution, so none of them have probably even grasped that atheism exists. But dang. Basically telling atheists that they're not living. Yeah, atheists have perfectly fine lives. Some of them belong to the Church of Satan and are doing great things for it. So, yeah, atheists live perfectly fine lives. Just because for you it's not a life if you don't have God in it. I'm not going to tell you should not have your God in your life. If that's what makes you happy and that's what gets you up in the morning, fine. Not going to tell you. But really, telling people that a life without God is no life at all. Again, you should have thought about the fact that the internet exists and have maybe thought about how your words were going to be construed, because everybody hates you now. Well, anybody who isn't a conservative Catholic, anyway. I'm excited for the future, and I pray that something I've said will resonate as you move on to the next chapter of your life. Never be afraid to profess the one holy Catholic and apostolic church. For this is the church that Jesus Christ established, through which we receive sanctifying grace. Oh, wow, I just cannot stop. I know that my message today had a little less fluff than is expected for these speeches, but I believe that this audience in this venue is the best place to speak openly and honestly about who we are and where we all want to go, which is heaven. I will agree with him there, because I'm pretty sure this is not anywhere close to the speech he gave at Georgia Tech. I don't know what his speech consisted of, but I don't think it was anywhere close to this, because we would have heard about it. I thank God for Benedictine College and for the example it provides to the world. I thank God for men like President Minnis who are doing their part for the kingdom. Come to find out, you can have an authentically Catholic college and a thriving football program. Thriving. That's why I've never heard of it. Cool. Now, that's being a bit snarky because this is Kansas. I don't know what division they're in, so it could be thriving in their division. I don't know. Make no mistake, you're entering into mission territory in a post-God world. Post-God, Jesus Christ. The majority of the world are Christian or Muslim, but they are religious. There aren't that many atheists in the world. I mean, there are more atheists than some religions, but not Christianity and not Islam. So, what post-God world are you talking about? Just because people aren't living like the Middle Ages where the only thing they lived for was God, well, that's probably because their life expectancy was so short. But still. But you were made for this, and with God by your side and a constant striving for virtue within your vocation, you too can be a saint. Christ is King to the heights. So that is mercifully over. Now again, I'm not doing this to shit on religion or Catholicism in particular, but yeah, those, just some of the things he said is just mind-boggling. Too bad it was a commencement speech, so we couldn't get deep into some of the things he said. But yeah, the fact that he couldn't, I think he was trying to cover his tracks by saying my teammate's girlfriend, hoping that nobody was going to catch on that he was mentioning Taylor Swift. Or he assumed that because these are good Catholics that none of them have heard of Taylor Swift. I don't listen to Taylor Swift. I have heard of her because I don't live under a freaking rock. So, yeah. Yeah, there were plenty of problematic things that he said, especially about women. But, again, everything he said about women, if that's how you feel about, that's the path you want to take in life, fine. I just don't want you to tell others that that should be the path they should be taking, because it's none of your business. And, yeah, I'll just keep it there. With that, I mean, this video is, oh my God, over an hour. So with that, I will see you guys in the next video.